By the way, much more on that topic tomorrow when Jarrett Murphy of City Limits leads a conversation on his website's in-depth research into how where you live can affect how healthy you'll be.
It's deep stuff. Now, when the NYPD arrests someone, they don't just take the suspect, into custody. They sometimes seize the personal property, especially cash, in a process called civil forfeiture. But whatever happens to that money, and should the police be held accountable to keep track of it?
A bill is now before the City Council that will require the NYPD to collect and report on the data of its civil forfeiture system.
And joining us now to dig into this issue is Max Rivlin-Nadle, a contributor to the Village Voice and Gothamist, who broke the story surrounding this possible abuse of law enforcement. That's possible abuse, Max. We're covering ourselves legally.
Yeah, we're, until we really get to the bottom of it, which is why the City Council bill is really important.
Okay. Well, can you tell us how you were able to break the story?
I heard stories and reports from really passionate public defenders in the Bronx and around 2013 who had been consistently seeing clients come in and say, well, the NYPD took serious amounts of money from me when they arrested me, and I don't know how to get it back. There's a ton of barriers between me and my money. And the problem with that is that when you are arrested and you're charged with a crime, you have a right to a defender, and that's where these public defenders come in. However, when the NYPD takes your money, now that's a civil suit. That's a civil case, and you don't have the right to an attorney. Right. So luckily, the Bronx defenders...
Which means, shorthand, you got to dig into your own pockets to get what was taken out of your pocket, essentially.
Right, and as one gentleman, Gerald Bryan, described to me in 2014 when I interviewed him, he said, it's just known in the neighborhood that when they take your money, it's gone. It's not even worth fighting it back because you're going to spend so much money trying to get it back by hiring your own lawyer. So luckily in the Bronx, this one public defense office, the Bronx Defenders, provided legal advocates who help people with civil cases, and it was one of these legal advocates who was a really great and passionate defender who brought it to my attention that this is a huge problem and there might be millions of dollars missing from low-income New Yorkers.
Okay, now when you say millions of dollars, how many millions are we talking here?
Well, that's part of why we need the City Council bill to pass, because we don't have an exact accounting of how much money the NYPD has taken. The Bronx Defenders also filed a lawsuit against the NYPD trying to get a true accounting of how much money they have in the property clerk's office. And in December 2013, a document that was given to the Bronx Defenders as part of that lawsuit listed it as high as $69 million. We don't know what that means. We know that they have $69 million that they've taken when they arrest people. We don't know how much of that is from, one large bust, smaller busts, $100 here, $500 here. Right. But we do know that that is a staggering amount of money that mostly, a huge majority, comes from the pockets of low-income New Yorkers.
Well, we know where it came from, but where does it go once it's in their possession? Is there a general account, so it's making interest as the day clicks on, or is it just in an old shoebox under someone's bed? How are they using the money?
Yeah, wouldn't it be nice if it was gaining interest, so when people finally get their money back, it's worth more? No, it is sitting in this account, and after a certain amount of time, after the NYPD has let that legally required amount of time pass, it funnels itself into the NYPD's pension fund.
Funnels itself, like the money just does this?
So there is some type of accounting there.
Right. What is the contribution? How much per year? We don't know. It's really obscure, and the system itself is archaic. It's been ruled unconstitutional twice by state and federal courts, and yet no reform has happened. The NYPD itself isn't. We don't know if they're enriching themselves, if they're buying things for precincts, if the city deducts from its amount that it spends on the NYPD the same amount that goes into the pension fund. So there's not, wholesale change of hands right there. But we don't have a full accounting, and that's what this bill is trying to do, and why it's important.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I have a quote from your article. He says, almost all of the time, the NYPD and the district attorney decline to actually pursue any type of forfeiture after they've seized it during an arrest. Can you explain that?
Yeah, the process of actually going through with a civil forfeiture means that somebody, you need to actually spend the amount of time that it would take to prove that this is somehow involved in a crime. 85% of people who are arrested and have their money taken are never charged with a crime. So you're already starting with 15% even actually have that threshold. Right. It's really staggering that the NYPD would insist on taking people's money knowing just how little actually go towards trial or even pleas, because they're never charged.
So, Max, part of the issue is when you get arrested on the street or something, your money goes away. But it's not just money. This forfeiture happens, as you noted, in the form of furniture, sometimes jewelry, cars. It's any number of things.
Right. I think you'll see nationwide there's more of an occurrence of things like furniture or jewelry, and that's a huge issue, nationwide civil forfeiture. In New York, cars are especially popular at being taken, even if the person who owns the car was just a passenger. These are things that people need to get to their jobs. It's a cascading effect. So if you lose your month's rent, or if you lose your car, even if you might get it back eventually, a year later, there's a cascading effect on your quality of life.
Yeah, you're deprived of your possessions for this time. You might still have a car payment, but your car is away in impound somewhere.
Absolutely. And this is what people deal with every day.
Can you tell us about the Ortiz family? I think you were sort of alluding to that right there.
Yeah, the Ortiz family, right? So, which I'm using, that's not a real name because their criminal case is still ongoing. They had a situation where the NYPD was serving a warrant over the summer on somebody who wasn't related to the family but was in the apartment with hanging out with friends. Right. The NYPD, when they came in, seized around $2,600 from the family that was left on a table that was going towards their rent the next month. They then had to pursue that money for months and months and months while they were also going through eviction proceedings because they didn't have that cash. That money was taken from them. And again, it wasn't even the mother whose money it was or the son whose friend was the warrant being served upon. Right. It was 3 steps removed. And the NYPD still felt the need to hold on to that money for months for no reason.
So we know that the NYPD has touted this system that they have for cataloging these things that came in when they implemented their new computing system. They nominated for some award saying this is the greatest computing in the public interest. But we can also say we reached out to the NYPD and they declined to be here today or to issue any statements. But this accounting thing, that they have this great computer system, but if they tried to figure out how much money would crash the whole thing, is what they testified to.
Right. That was the most amazing and illustrative part of the testimony. In 2013, they created this new system called the Property and Evidence Tracking System. Gee, that's a pretty great name. Yeah. This should allow you to track your property and evidence. However, they claimed that by doing this, it would crash their system, that they had no way to actually break it down precinct by precinct, borough by borough, how much cash and property they're taking. They would have to build a new system. This doesn't hold a lot of water, obviously. I think people in the council chambers are pretty astonished when they made this claim. Whether the NYPD is capable of doing it or not, it's kind of proves a broader point that they actually are not keeping tabs on how much money they're taking or where it's going.
Okay. Now, we have a few minutes left. Can you just tell us exactly, break down what this bill would require the NYPD to start doing?
The NYPD would start filing quarterly reports on the amount of money that they've seized and the property that they've taken, break it down borough by borough, precinct by precinct, really give a full accounting. It wouldn't change the administrative code, which is really what needs to be changed. It wouldn't change the process per se, but it would allow for the city council and for criminal justice advocates and for New Yorkers at large to get a general sense of where the money is, where it's going, and how much is being taken before taking larger action or making more further reforms, which is incredibly needed.
So a few months ago, there was some news about higher-ups in the police department taking outside money, doing these sort of consulting things, or even getting guns for people, and there was a large public outcry. Where do you think the public voice on this is? Why aren't people rioting in the streets? They're literally being pickpocketed by the New York Police Department and not getting their money back.
I go back to what Mr. Bryan told me back in 2014 about that people are just so used to this, that it's such a fact of daily life that they don't consider it out of the ordinary. You get arrested, your money is gone. People should be enraged. These are people who are supposed to protect you. These are people who are supposed to serve you, and yet they are acting no better than petty thieves.
And from your reporting, where's the biggest impact of this happening?
In minority and low-income communities, specifically the South Bronx, Brooklyn as well, Manhattan. That's where you're seeing a high concentration of this type of policing, because it goes hand in hand with broken windows policing, which cracks down on quality of life offenses. So let's say you're drinking outside, and they'll arrest you for that, and oh, you have $500 in your pocket. We'll take that too.
What would the next steps in this battle sort of look like beyond this bill? What would the next steps be? Because as we know, all reforms take a really long time.
In 1972 and 2002, state and federal courts found this practice to be unconstitutional and demanded that New York City change its administrative code. New York City only changes its administrative code when city council members legislate it. You have to write a new code. That hasn't happened. I think council members are scared of the blowback that would come from the NYPD and need to make substantive changes, and they need to be led by the city council speaker as well as the mayor, who's been very reticent in terms of enacting any type of criminal justice reform.
Well, we actually spoke with Councilmember Richie Torres this morning, who's been doing a lot of pioneering work on this, and we suspect we'll have him in very soon to speak about this and the legislation that's pending.
Absolutely. And of course, we'll be checking the articles in the Village Voice for whatever you're writing.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.